Welcome to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota. Today we're going to take a look at the Minnesota Vikings Stadium debate raging on in the state of Minnesota. And I think we have to look at an outside-the-box approach. In fact, there is no question the owners of the NFL and the owner of the Minnesota Vikings, Ziggy, totally have the upper hand in this debate. In fact, they're already behind the scenes threatening to move this to LA or to another state. And so it puts undue pressure on our leaders in the state of Minnesota to get something done. Yet I think when we look at the overall picture, there was a reasonable approach offered to Ziggy a couple of years ago by a Chanhassen senator, and many of us supported the idea. Rather than taking all these state dollars or taxpayer dollars to invest in a professional venue, let's just give them the Metrodome, Mall of America Field, whatever you want to call it. It's just had a new roof put on. It's just had a new artificial turf put in. So from a standpoint of being ready to play football for a long time yet, the Metrodome is in good shape. Yet Ziggy refused to buy that for $1. Yet I think the principle of that offer from this senator, Minnesota senator, was valid. And I think in today's program, I want to expand on that. In fact, what I want to do is bring a predator into the debate. Somebody that the National Football League owners hate with a passion, and that's the Players Union. When we look at what's going on, when we're looking at our papers, we're being told we want the facts, right? I don't think we're getting the facts. And one of the things that strikes myself, and I'm sure many of you, is the fact that the Viking propaganda that they're telling us is the fact that we're down to the last $300 million. That's just not true. The people in Ramsey County have not approved $350 million. Some of their county commissioners or their politicians want to put on that they have. But in fact, Ziggy himself knows right now that that proposal's probably in doubt, and he's stressing get her done. And yeah, I want to get something done to keep the Minnesota Vikings here. I'm a pro football fan. I'm not an addict, but I do enjoy a game. And I think it's a benefit for our state to keep the program here, and I think it's a benefit for the NFL and the Players Union to see that professional football stays in the state of Minnesota. But I, like many of you, get very nervous when I read in the Star Tribune, Dayton is pushing for a stadium session. And what makes me very nervous is who is going to be representing us, representing we the people in this debate. For clearly, when we look at the leadership in the Republican House and Senate, and we look at our governor, we only have to look back to the last session of the legislature, where we had disastrous leadership. And in fact, the state closed down under Cook, Zellner, and Dayton. Do we want these three people negotiating with some of the cleverest minds in the country, namely these NFL owners, these billionaires, this group of billionaires? And I also look at the situation here when we talk about the overall picture relating to the debate. I believe the signals are crossed, just as this headline in the Star Tribune says from the sports section. I think the signals are crossed, and I also think, like many of you, this is about the dome of the Capitol, where the elitists of the state think, hey, trust us, we'll take care of it. And that is a group that control the gold, the golden horses on top of the Capitol. And I think we have found out over the years that that group just can't be trusted. There was a day when professionals in our state, when I was a young man or I was a kid, professionals in our community were true professionals. They provided us a professional service that we could afford, and yet they were active in our communities and they were trustworthy. The so-called professionals today have become out of reach for many of us to go to the doctor, the dentist, to a lawyer, to an accountant, and all of these so-called professional groups suddenly want the government to fund their outrageous demands for compensation for their time. And professional sports is probably the most obnoxious point in the professional arena that we have today. So when we're looking at the debate for a new stadium, we have to bring some competition in. That is what the so-called professionals of today don't want. They want control. And when we as citizens who enjoy the Vikings, whether you go to a bar like I did the Bennigan's in town here and had a good salad and a couple beers, and by the end of the first half I went home because the game was over. But it really doesn't matter to us 90+% of the fans who pay dearly on every item we buy in the store, it seems like today, that some of that margin goes to some professional sport venue. And it really doesn't matter to us, does it? Whether the Vikings continue to play in the renovated Metrodome with the new roof and the new grass field, or if the Vikings would play sometimes in the bank, the TCF Stadium at the new Gopher Stadium. And for the realities, we're going to be watching on television anyway. Even when we spend $1.1 billion, if that happens, that we build this brand new stadium, we're still going to watch it on television. We're still going to be Monday morning quarterbacks. And so we have to bring in the debate, why do we need all this stuff? 90% of us that are fans of the Vikings certainly don't need a new stadium. In fact, I would contend the Vikings don't even need a new stadium. So when we look at what's going on, I think we need to bring in a new plan of attack, a new angle. For clearly, we as taxpayers don't have $650 million to put in a stadium, whether it's $350 million from Ramsey County or $350 million from Hennepin County, or to do some kind of tax to see that $650 million comes in, because the reality shows we've only got, what, maybe 20,000 season ticket holders, that families and businesses that control those 60,000 tickets. In fact, it's probably less than that. In fact, we have to remember in this debate, a large share of the people that go there are probably going to a tax-deductible venue, whether it's those fancy booths that go around the stadium, or even some of the prime tickets. I've only been to one Vikings game, I believe, in the Metrodome, maybe one or two more, but when I had good seats, a fertilizer dealer who I was a major customer of gave tickets to me and my family to enjoy a game, great seats on the 40-yard line. And so that also needs to be brought into the debate. But when we talk about what's really going on here, I want to expand on what was taken up a few years ago when a senator from Chanhassen offered it to the Vikings for $1. I would like to offer it now to the NFL Players Union that just got done fighting over a contract. In fact, we lost some of the preseason games, I guess it was, because of this fight, and sell the Metrodome to the NFL Players Union for $10. Of course, in exchange for an extended stay in the state of Minnesota. And take on what that senator from Chanhassen started that Ziggy turned down and put a competitor into this debate, because I think the Players Union could easily see that we keep a stadium here, and the Players Union, once they would own a stadium for a lousy $10 bill, they may indeed decide with their tax issues and their huge pay, they want to build a new stadium here in Minnesota. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm just opposed to spending huge amounts of tax dollars under the proposals that are on the table right now, at least. And so let's see if our new hope, Christian Ponder, is a true businessman. Can he pass that along? Can your legislator? I'm going to send this as a request to Ingebrigtsen and Westrom, my senator and representative here in the Alexandria area, to see that they bring this proposal up. Let's sell it to the Players Union. So let's put some pressure back on Ziggy and the NFL owners that we may bring, as Minnesota taxpayers, bring a new era into professional sports. Why not let those players become, the NFL become controlled by those people that really do the work? Why do the Players Union really need owners? Why do we need owners? The stadiums are already built around the country. Why don't the players take over some of these stadiums? At least try it for Minnesota for a $10 bill. Just think of that, how easily they could get into the business side of football big time by owning the Metrodome. And with that, I want to expand on what I see as needed. You know, we have all this ownership control, the power of these owners, and what do we have going on in our society today? We have Occupy Wall Street, we have the Tea Party, fed up with government, and so I think it's a time that we as citizens make some sound alternatives to bring true competition back to this arena. One of the other issues that I think is important is that we bring the focus of this stadium back to where it is right now in downtown Minneapolis. We have spent big money putting a rail system in for the airport to downtown Minneapolis. Now we're spending huge amounts of money to extend that to downtown St. Paul. And why would we build a stadium in the location out there that they're talking about now that has environmental issues, that has road issues? Why aren't we bringing it back to the center where people can get on light rail from downtown St. Paul or downtown or from the airport or many sites and ride down on rail for easy transportation, lots of parking, all those things. I think the downtown Minneapolis area is truly where this stadium belongs, and that should be brought back front and center, and I think Ziggy is finally waking up to that fact as well. And the other thing is, you were saying, well, how would this operate if the players suddenly own the Metrodome? Very simple. We would have proposed, in exchange for 30 years or a 99-year guarantee that the professional sports is going to, professional football is going to be in Minnesota. We put a simple 7-man board together where the governor of Minnesota or his appointee is a board member of this 7-member board. And 3 members come from the one conference. What do we have? The National Conference, American Conference. Anyway, a 7-man board, 3 from the 2 league conferences. And so we, as the state of Minnesota, selling a venue that was worth tens of millions of dollars for a $10 bill, still have input and still have position and power to see that if the players union that then become the owner, if they want to build a new stadium in downtown or some other place in the metropolitan area, that we have some input, and that becomes part of the big debate as well. One of the things that scares me in this whole process, as we talked about our governor and our legislature, and our legislative leaders doing a disastrous job for us at the end of the last legislative session, who should we get in there to negotiate no matter what the outcome is, whether it's my proposal or an abbreviated proposal that's on the table right now? I think truly we need three strong leaders. And I challenge the Tea Party people to see that the Republican Party changes leadership both in the House and the Senate. When I look at some of the people, I think Julie Rosen should be involved in this. I think she offered one of the promising options for this debate. Dean Erdahl, a guy that's been in the legislature for a while, let him get in there, and I think we get the people out of there. We get some new leadership, some people that aren't tainted by the mess that we had, and I think we see that the Democratic Party gives us the top Democrat. And I think when you look at the Al Franken things, I think you look at the on-allotment challenge and all that. Let's bring the number one Democrat in the state of Minnesota, David L. Lilhog, I think you pronounce his name, but I think you know who I'm talking about. He's clearly the top Democrat. Whenever they want something done, they go to David. And let's see that he is represents us in this debate and this negotiations with the legislature, the owners of the Vikings, or the new proposal, the Players Union. And to see that we get some sound minds coming in there, yet we the people are truly represented in this whole process. When we look at what's happened in the past, I think it was extremely unfortunate that we built the Gopher Stadium without including the Vikings. But of course that's hindsight, and we can't change that now. I think we want to make sure that we get a stadium that's covered. I think it was a disaster that we built a twin stadium in the right location, but didn't spend the money to put a retractable roof on it so it becomes a more usable long-term venue. And I think it's also time that we the people pass some strong messages on to our leaders. And when we look at what's going on with the Occupy Wall Street, with the Tea Party movement, I also think that we in the state of Minnesota need to wake up to the fact that it's time to modernize our government. For the last legislative session clearly did not deliver what the people asked for in the last election. They wanted a true shake-up in our government. They wanted a true shake-up so we wouldn't have the governor and a few legislative leaders deciding everything. Why do we need 201 senators and representatives down there? The facts are we don't. And why don't we shrink our legislative numbers dramatically? And why don't we go to just one body? For truly a group of about 60 legislators would easily handle the issues of Minnesota that face the taxpayer, the issues on education, on health care, on all the issues, jobs facing us. We have a group that is way too large. In fact, when we talk about spending a huge amount of money, $300 million of state money on a stadium, We got to realize, people, there's a group in the Capitol right now that would like to spend another $300 million renovating the Capitol and having a big guest area and all this type of thing, when reality shows that if we would shrink to one body, the one body, whether it's the House side or the Senate side, could be used for this visitors area. So there's just so many things going on in government today that are out of touch with modern times. We're in the cell phone age where we can email a picture of a problem, even a video of what we're facing, to our representatives or our governor. And so when we look at the stadium issue, it just shows how we are not keeping things modern. We are not keeping things in a venue to see that the will of the people is taken care of, and that we don't have a government controlled by the dome. The entire body of government represents all the people, not just the people that want to run the golden chariot, not just the people that think they're better than the rest of us. We clearly have some issues here. And the other thing I would like to bring into the stadium debate is, with our economy, those who have watched this program firmly believe we're going through some tough times. We have some incredibly tough decisions to make. Basically, we're in a depression, whether you want to call it depression or Great Recession, with all these jobs. I think the issue of construction workers, basically we're in a WPA situation. If indeed we end up building a new stadium, it's time we see that these construction workers step forward with a reduced rate. I mean, the construction workers that would work on this stadium, if we indeed build a new stadium, their wages are about 3 times the average Minnesotan, and that's ridiculous. That we would spend taxpayer dollars or special interest dollars to see that they continue with a wage rate that just no longer makes sense, and probably never did. And to see that we find some new leadership, and we look at all the alternatives, what's going on in our government. And when we look at the banking situation, the housing situation, we look at state government, we are continually bombarded by ads from the teachers union. Shouldn't we also be asking for leaders, where do the teachers union or this Education Minnesota get all this money? Are we letting people make massive deductions from state or national taxes to see that we're bombarded by ads showing the value of education? People, we're spending half our state budget on education. When you look at K through 5 plus our university system, it's mind-boggling what we're spending. Yet dropout of high school is still a major issue. And when we talk about all the virtues of academia, aren't the so-called elitists that academia turned out, the Harvard crowd, the master's degrees, the doctorate degrees, aren't they the ones that have delivered us this massive mess? Aren't they the ones that have made them dome people and we just commoners? So we have a lot of things that must come front and center in our governmental process. And truly, when we look at this stadium issue, it relates big time. And when we look at players that are making these huge salaries, why not give them the opportunity to compete by owning some of these venues? I think Peterson would find it very interesting with his big salary. I think his accountants would find it very interesting for both a incredibly high paid player like Peterson, or Christian Ponder, or many of the top players in the NFL, let them look at this opportunity. Don't laugh me off. Look at the opportunity we may have of giving them the Metrodome for a $10 bill. And let them, as well as some of our academia people, look at the opportunities the Players Union would have and what that could be to start true competition in this professional sports arena. Or truly, we need to also look at what is happening on a national basis. Isn't it time, with our salaries basically being locked in a plateau area, why are our congressmen and senators allowing these people to go up like we're living in the biggest boom time ever? And when a person presents an argument like this, you obviously leave yourself open to some great ridicule. But the numbers, I guarantee you, work. They work for us as common people. They work even better for the Players Union. And they truly poke a finger in the eye of these owners that have believed they're better than the rest of us, and they got us by the neck. And it's time the people's point of view come about. Let's see that these entities think outside the box. They understand that that downtown location is where our transportation hub is set up. Let's use that. Let's challenge the Tea Party people. Let's challenge the Occupy Wall Street, and let's challenge our two political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans in the state of Minnesota, that totally let us down in this last legislative session. And we want to see that when we talk about something like the Vikings Stadium, they see that some new leaders, a new Speaker of the House is picked from the legislature, a new Senate leader is picked, and somebody that has more experience and a tougher record represents the governor in this negotiations. I think that's clearly a reasonable request as we the people to our government. And I would ask you to give these people a call this week. I would ask you to email your leaders to take a look at and even talk or email to some of the players in the Vikings, the Christian Ponders or the other stars that some of you people have access to see that we put this proposal before the NFL Players Union. Buy the stadium for a $10 bill and see what your options are. See if you can't keep the Vikings in Minnesota for us and save your fans $650 million. I think it's an incredible, reasonable request, and sound economics show that it's doable, and the times we're in show that we as taxpayers do not have $650 million to contribute to a billion-dollar owner or a multi-billion-dollar club called the NFL. Take that to your legislatures. I thank you for listening to Inform TV. I'm Ellen Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota.